I was a difficult child growing up, to use my mother's favorite term for me. The oldest of five kids, never interested in boys, really into science and math, etc. My mom especially kept trying to pressure me into more traditionally feminine pursuits, and starting in my junior year of high school, started trying to set me up with boys from families she approved of. Arranged marriages are common in my parents' culture. We fought a lot. I was able to get through all of that, and thanks to scholarships, I was able to go to college. My parents grumbled, but I have a passion for a field that happens to be very high paying. And my mom wasn't subtle about pushing me to get an MRS degree. Things came to a head when three things happened all at once. I got a terrific job offer from a major company in my field. It required me to move to another state, but they'd pay me to finish my degree. I took the offer immediately, which gave me the independence to do the two other things. I came out as gay. My parents went back and forth between refusing to believe me and insisting that it was wrong and brought shame on our family. I converted to another religion. At the time, I was getting serious with a woman of a different faith than the one I'd been raised in, and while I didn't convert purely because of her, she was a factor. My parents did not approve, to say the least. In short, the resulting series of fights lead to my parents declaring that if I took this job and continued on my course of being a lesbian and converting to this other religion, they'd disown me. I let them disown me and completely cut contact with everyone in my family, except my little sister. She was still living at home with my parents, and we'd always gotten along very well, so I quietly kept in contact with her. I haven't seen or spoken a word to my parents or anyone in my family except my little sister in 7 years. I'm still working for the same company, now in a higher level position that gives me a very comfortable living. I'm also now married to a woman, not the one I'd been dating when I cut contact with my family, but of the same religion, and faith is important to us both. I have a lovely little girl. My wife's from a previous heterosexual marriage, and through IVF, I'm now pregnant. Our wedding was a small, private thing, mostly with my wife's family and some friends. No one from my family was present. Now, a few days ago, my sister was in a car accident. Drunk driver, and she's not at fault, but I was able to step in and cover her medical bills since her job doesn't pay enough for how badly she was hurt. I was on the phone with my sister talking about possibly coming to visit, and we were talking about whether my daughter should come with me when I suddenly heard my mom's voice yell, "Daughter?" My mom was apparently visiting my sister and grabbed the phone away from her. She started screaming at me about how I could have a daughter. Why did I not tell her I was getting married? How I could steal her grandchildren from her, etc. Eventually, I snapped, told her, "I have a daughter, you do not have a granddaughter," and hung up. Predictably, my social media and phone have been blowing up with my parents and relatives who think they have a right to my life, and my daughter and child or children I'm pregnant with after they disowned me for pursuing a life of my own, being gay and converting to another religion. They've really focused on my daughter especially. I'm apparently the first of my parents' children to have kids, and my parents have gone nuts with our granddaughter. I've blocked everyone I can, and my wife, who's been a champ about the whole thing, already took precautions to make sure no one can do something crazy like I've read about estranged parents pulling on this forum, trying to pick up our daughter from school without us, breaking into our house, etc. Problem is, my sister thinks I'm being mean. She'd like to meet my wife and her niece without hiding it from the family, and thinks I can meet my family somewhere in the middle. My gut feeling says no, my family burned their bridges years ago, and I don't want my daughter exposed to people who think I'm sick, shameful, and sinful for living my life the way I've chosen. My wife agrees. Still, from someone who's not intimately tied up in this mess, am I being unfair to my parents? Should I hear them out, or should I just keep stonewalling them? Top comment, somebody said. She'd like to meet my wife and her niece without hiding it from the family. She can do that without any action on your part to make up with your parents. Tell her she's welcome to visit you and your family anytime she likes. Do not engage in discussion about these other people. Your sister is 6 years younger and has only heard your parents' side of what happened when she was 12? She's plenty old enough now to understand that you've made your own decisions for your life, and she should respect them. Update first, I had no idea my question would get so much interest. Second, everyone was damn near unanimous. After talking with my wife about it, I did a version of what a lot of people suggested. I sent my sister an email explaining my feelings about our family. I'm not completely set on staying no contact with my parents, but if there is going to be any reconciliation, They are going to have to make the first move. I am a lesbian, a religion, and a career, and these things are non-negotiable under any circumstances. If my parents cannot or will not accept these parts of who I am, the rest of me and my life are off limits. They disown me. If they want me to be a part of the family again, that's completely on them to accept me for who I am. I told my sister that I'm open to meeting her, but only on my terms. I live near a big city, and I'd be happy to take her out to lunch or dinner in the city. My wife and daughter will not be present. Any discussion of where I actually live is forbidden, and if I see my parents, I'm leaving immediately. Only if I'm satisfied with this first meeting will I consider bringing my wife and daughter to another meetup. What I didn't expect was an email I got from my second brother. He was the middle child of the family and joined the military after high school. I can't say I ever knew him well, and he was on deployment when I cut contact with my family. But I got this email from him. Hey, if you delete this email right away, I understand, but there's things I need to say. I know I didn't say anything to mom and dad when we were growing up or when you went your own way in college. I should have. Guess I'm a coward. Dad respected my decision to join the Navy, but I didn't tell him a big part of why I did it. I joined the Navy in part to get away from mom and dad and everyone else. They were just as controlling to me and other brother as they were to you and sister, just in a different way. I didn't see it then, didn't think about it that way back then. I should have. Easier to pretend I agreed and just go along. And now it's easier to make up excuses for why I can't visit home. What they're doing now scares me. I met a wonderful woman last year and we're thinking about getting married. We agreed that if we get married, we'll want to start a family. I see what our family is doing now to you and your daughter, and I don't want that happening to me, my wife, or my children. I need to think about them, not just about me. And while I've never cared much about religion, it's important to my girlfriend, and if we marry, I'm going to convert to make her happy. I doubt mom or dad will take it any better from me than they did from you, even though my girlfriend is. Religion A and your religion B. I think I need to do what you did and cut our family out of my life. Mom and dad forced you to do it, but I think I need to do this now. If you never want to see me again, I understand. I'd feel the same in your situation. But the next time I have leave, I'd like to apologize in person if you'll let me. Years too late, I know, but I'm sorry for not saying anything, and I'm sorry for not standing up to you. Love, I was able to meet my brother today, and I think he's sincere. He's horrified by how our family has been treating me because I have a child now that he's looking at getting married and having kids of his own. We were sitting together at the restaurant when he sent an email to the family announcing that he's serving, followed by him blocking everyone. My sister just told me she'd think about it, and I haven't heard another word since. Thanks everyone for the kind words and for encouraging me to stick with my gut. Update. I am in Florida. My parents are in Texas. Situation 7 years ago, I severed all contact with my parents. They disowned me because of my homosexuality and conversion to another religion. I have since moved to Florida and married. I have a young stepdaughter, my wife's from a previous heterosexual marriage, whom I am very close to. 2 weeks ago, I was accidentally put into contact with my parents again, and my parents learned that I have a daughter. At the time, I made a post about this in relationships. I have maintained my complete silence with my family, except for one sister I'd been in discreet contact with and a brother who has decided to serve with our family, overseeing how they're treating me and my daughter. This morning, my sister informed me that my parents are seeking legal options for the court to force them to have access to my daughter via grandparents' rights. My sister, and therefore my parents, do not know my daughter is not biologically mine and therefore not related to them. My wife and I are in a very stable middle-class situation and are working on having another child. As such, and because my parents are out of state and disowned me because of my sensuality and religion, I'm pretty sure this is a bluff, but I thought I'd ask here. Do I have anything I need to worry about legally? Relevant comments. Somebody said, so your parents are wishing to assert grandparent rights over a child that is not their biological grandchild? I don't see how they could be so confused as to think they have any rights to a non-bio step-grandchild. If you adopt this child, then they might take a step closer to a legitimate claim. However, in the same way that if I stand on the bottom rung of a ladder, then I will be one step closer to the moon. Original poster replied, "They don't know she's not their biological grandchild as far as I know. She is technically my stepdaughter, but I don't call her that, and she doesn't call me her stepmother. She was only 2 when I married her biological mother. To her, I'm a short mom. To contrast my wife, who is a tall mom." Final update for those curious. My sister says my parents talked it over with a family friend who works in law, and the friend pretty much laughed them out of the room.
After my parents got divorced, my dad started dating Betty. Everything started okay, but Betty became jealous when my dad spent time with me. She was never abusive, just passive-aggressive, and saved her worst comments for when he wasn't around. I learned I can't trust her, but I am polite to her. Betty has a son, Frank, who's very greedy. When she met my dad, Betty stopped giving him everything he wanted. In 2009, he and my dad had an argument that ended with the 40-year-old Frank punching my then 70-year-old dad. My dad died a few months ago. The will was joint, so the estate goes to Betty, and once she dies, what's left will be divided between me, my brother Alan, and Frank. It's unlikely me or Alan will see any of it because Frank will drain her until there's nothing left, which has already started. They got married in 1996. In 2006, he changed the beneficiary on his individual retirement account to only me. It's not part of the estate. She is very nervous about the individual retirement account. My dad was fairly wealthy, so between his estate, her retirement accounts, and them selling their house for almost $1 million, she is not going to starve, but she is still nervous. Alan called me with all this info because the estate lawyer is sending me a letter about it. Betty told him not to tell me anything, but he felt he had to. Haven't gotten the letter yet, but they're maybe setting up a trust that she'll want me to sign the individual retirement account into. I expect a guilt trip about doing the right thing and following his wishes. But the reason they had a joint will is because they couldn't agree on any other kind of split, as my dad didn't like Frank and Betty didn't like me. If I thought my dad had dementia, I might believe the individual retirement account was missed, but he was very meticulous. It feels like making me beneficiary was his way of providing for me, knowing this would happen. It does not make financial sense for me to give the money to the estate and end up with 25% of whatever pittance is left, when I could have 50% of whatever is in the individual retirement account. No, I would split it with Alan. My other reason for not wanting to share is that I'm currently pregnant, and having this money would make being a SOM easier, and the baby would get a jump start on her college fund. Would I be the asshole if I didn't give this money back to the estate and shared it with my brother? I might be the buttface, because while I want to be ethical, I am having some schadenfreude over being in control after she's treated me poorly for 30 years. I also don't need the money, but she doesn't either, so. Other information. I don't know why she wouldn't call me directly. Either the lawyer said not to, or this is another example of her not treating me as an adult. My brother is my half-brother. He was estranged and came back into our lives in 2008. I feel like he would have been on the individual retirement account too. After my brother came back into our lives, but before he had changed his will, my dad always had asked me to be fair with him, so I would give him his share. Update. I got my mystery letter. It was pretty much what I expected. Basically, please give me the money, because it's obvious that your dad thought this would be covered by the will, and he meant for all the money to come to me, then filter down to you kids. Complete with a guilt-trippy paragraph about how they lived on their Social Security and withdrawing from their individual retirement accounts, and neither of them have a pension or other income, and I quote, only what we had saved over the years. There's also a line about how you can see that there is a large value to the items gifted to you and Alan, which I'm not going to argue with exactly, except that I sincerely wonder if she thinks I'm an idiot and doesn't realize I know how to add. She just sold their house for almost $1 million. Or that I don't know what the apartment in Italy is worth, approximately $350,000. I find it very difficult to believe that my father didn't also have savings accounts, mutual funds, plus she's going to get widow survivor benefits in addition to her own benefits from Social Security. The items Alan and I were gifted come nowhere close to that. I think altogether, there is a car involved. We're divvying up maybe 100,000 worth of stuff. Maybe. If we can get a good price for the car. With just those two sales, she could buy a house for 200,000 to 300,000 near her son and still have plenty to live on. But she seems to have her heart set on buying a house by the beach, which doesn't feel very much like my problem. From her letter, you'd think that this individual retirement account has millions of dollars in it that she desperately needs to survive. But no. She tells me that it's worth approximately $55,000. That's 5% of just what she sold the house for. I genuinely think it's both pitiful and pathetic that she wouldn't just let it go, but I'm sure she has Frank whispering in her ear about making sure she gets everything she's entitled to. But now I do have a copy of the will. Two things stand out from what she sent me. The letter isn't on the lawyer's stationery, so there's been no official demand of any sort, and I feel like it's unlikely that I'll get one. Nowhere in the will does it say that she couldn't just rewrite her will and give everything to Frank. Like I said in my last post, I don't trust her in the slightest. So I've contacted an estate lawyer so I can determine my next steps. Thanks for being here with me on this ride. I'll update again if there's anything more to say. Update. There's not a whole lot to update on, as for better or for worse. I haven't heard from my stepmother in months, but I suppose this is some sort of closure for people who care. About a week after I got the letter, she sent me a text message asking if I'd gotten the letter and if I'd made a decision. I said yes and no, respectively. She hasn't contacted me since, so nothing since August. Since then, I've also had my baby 5 weeks early. So it's not like I have a lot of brain power to spend on her. I spoke with an estate attorney, and she confirmed that there's nothing legally my stepmother could do to get the individual retirement account, so I was in the clear there. She also confirmed that joint wills don't really exist anymore, so if my stepmother wanted to, she could just rewrite her will to exclude me or me and Alan or whatever she wanted to do. This left me with the interesting problem of, how do I get the money? Considering I didn't know where it was, and I didn't really want to contact my stepmother and say, I am disinclined to acquiesce to your request, so tell me how to get my money. Because I felt like that would open up a can of, I'm not going to tell you until you agree to sign it over to me. Luckily for me, the lawyer I spoke to was also the son of an old Italian man like my father, and mentioned that these old Italian men tend to pick a bank and never change. So I Googled around for investment firms until I saw a name that rang a bell, and I went, aha. Long story short, the individual retirement account is now in my name. Had to take a disbursement for this year and sent half to Alan. My stepmother has moved a couple of times, so I don't know her address to send my response letter to. And like I said, she hasn't contacted me since August, so I am considering my hands washed of it unless she actually tries. So all's well that ends well for me. Alan, on the other hand, is still having to deal with her because of the estate. He's meeting with the estate lawyer tomorrow to get some questions answered, so I'll be interested in hearing what happens. One of the things she had mentioned to him is that she needs a car that my father left to Alan, and I appraised because if something, the estate, I am guessing, because there's no way the car is worth this much, is worth over $5 million. She says there are tax implications, which doesn't make sense to me, but if she's really dealing with a $5 million estate, it's super extra petty that she was coming after me for $55,000. Some comments below. Somebody said, I find it telling that she saved all her hatred for you and not your brother. Original poster replied, I'd say it's because he didn't grow up with her. He's 20 years older than I am, but she's also misogynistic anyway. It's one of those things that I feel like I can't explain to people, because on its own, it doesn't mean much. But she treats me markedly differently when I have a man than when I don't. If I don't, she acts like I'm little better than a child. Oh, and when she was asking about if I had made a decision, she asked if I had talked to my husband about it. I told him, and his response was, why would you talk to me about it? It's not my money. I also find it weird that presumably she'd think my husband would respond with, oh yeah, update. I'm not sure if I'm making this post for me or for you guys, but at least this is a chronicle of the issue in case anyone asks me about it later. After my last update, there was silence for a while. Then my stepmother sent me a Christmas card with another letter inside it, but I'm sure that particular irony was lost on her. In it, she explained what she was going to use the money for health insurance payments, and once again acting like this money is what's keeping her from the brink of starvation. This letter, however, had a return address, so I did what any red-blooded millennial would do, and Googled it. One visit to the county deed website later confirmed for me that she has bought a beach house. Well, it's not on the beach. It's in a beach town, being purposefully vague here, for $745,000. She ended the letter by saying that she had talked to my cousin, who told her that I saw the money as being able to continue my father's memory, and what she felt I should accept are books, photo albums, etc., because those are my father's memory, but she'll discard them if she didn't hear from me by the end of the year, because it just proves I'm all about the money and nothing else. I'm sure the irony of me being all about the money while offering to replace it with material things while really wanting me to give her money is also lost on her. Also, the attempt to sell me memories was a nice touch. As I finally had an address to respond to, I wrote what my best friend described as the most polite bridge burning ever, and sent it off before her deadline. She called yesterday, which I did not answer. She left a message saying that she just received my letter that day. I know the USPS sucks right now, but almost 2 weeks for a letter? And to call her back so she could clear some things up. Her tone was very hostile, so I am disinclined to call her back. Honestly, I don't really want to hear what she has to say, and I'm not sure why she would think I would. Like, there's really nothing she could say that would convince me to give her the money, and she'll probably just yell at me like I'm the kid she still thinks I am. Hopefully this doesn't escalate, but if it does, you know I'll update. Ha! In the comment section, do you want any of the photo albums, books, or other things? I wouldn't give her any money, but if she had those, if they were important, I probably would talk to her, but I'm nosy. Worst car, I can tell her to kick rocks and block her. Original poster replied, "The thing is that I already have everything that would be meaningful, except for some letters he wrote me, but I don't even know where those are, and if they're where I think they are, she might give them to my brother by accident." All the photo albums were ones she put together for each year, so she's not going to give them to me, and they're full of what she thought was important for each year. It's like she thinks he never gave me anything? I don't know. It's weird. Another commenter, "I'm curious about what your letter said. I'd tell her that she'd better lose your number, or you will try to lay claim to her beach house." Obvious, can't do that. But maybe the threat with the knowledge that you got her money-grabbing number will get her to crawl back in her hole. She is either pissing through the money, or she promised Sonny Boy the car and individual retirement account, and thought you and your bro would just blindly sign everything over. Original poster replied, "It was basically that she's always treated me as a second-class citizen. And I believe that my dad leaving me the individual retirement account was to make up for that because he knew what would happen. And that I know how much the property she bought cost and how much money she should have. So it seems disingenuous how she keeps acting like she needs the money. I found out today that her son apparently owns a house at the same time that he bought for almost $1 million in 2018, so obviously not connected to this situation, so he can help her if she needs it. And it makes me really wonder why she's so fixated on this when it's basically pennies.